Okay, good evening. Welcome to members, officers, press, public joining the Strategic Development Committee. It's the first physical meeting since the unfortunate expiry of the COVID-19 regulations, allowing meetings to be held entirely remotely. The meeting is being live streamed on YouTube, so welcome to everyone viewing on YouTube. To minimise travel and maintain social distancing, most officers are joining this meeting via Zoom. Now, here's the test. Can everyone hear me? If you could raise your hands. Looks okay, thank you. My name is Councillor Daniel Blaney, and I am Chair of the Strategic Development Committee. Can everyone physically present continue to wear their face covering until they are invited to speak? Having said that, I think speaking is when there's the most danger, so you may wish to keep it on as I would. And after you have finished speaking, if you have removed it, please cut rather cover. For members in the room, please speak clearly and loudly so the microphone can pick up what you say. I was in a meeting remotely the other day, and despite people removing their face covering, I did struggle to hear, so this is why I might sound a bit weird. For those joining by Zoom, please mute the microphone if you are not speaking. I'm now going to ask members of the committee and officers to introduce themselves. Shall we go round this way along that line?
Councillor Rachel Cripp, Forest Gate North Ward.
Councillor Harvinder Singh Bailey, Berlin Ward. Councillor John Whitworth from West Ham Ward. Councillor Alan Griffiths, Canning Town South.
Thank you. Can we, maybe with the clerk's assistants, go through any officers' introductions present? Thank you.
I'm Jane Custance. I'm the Director of Planning and Development.
Hello, I'm James Volt. I'm Senior Development Manager.
Robin Bennett.
Hello, I'm Robin Bennett, Principal Planner in Development Management.
Claire Newitt.
Claire Newitt, Principal Planner in Development Management.
Rajvinder Kaur, Principal Planner in Development Management.
Marina.
Hello, I'm Marina Light, Principal Planner in Development Management Team.
Sean.
Hello, I'm Sean Scott. I'm a Principal Planner.
James Bolt.
Yeah, we've done me, I think. Maybe Narinda, then Amanda.
Hi everyone, this is Narinda Ubi, I'm Principal Transport Planner.
Hi everyone, I'm Amanda Campbell, Head of Planning Law.
Okay, thank you. Okay, I want to remind members, when a vote is taken, it's by raising your hand, so we can capture that on the screen, and obviously for members of the public present and others present too. Right, item 1, apologies for absence. I have one from Councillor James Beckles. Are there any others?
Councillor Lee Parkway emailed this afternoon to send her apologies.
Thank you, that's our Vice Chair. Thank you very much. I'm not seeing any other invitations. So item 2, minutes of the meetings on the 24th of February and 24th of March, pages 1 to 38. Now, I've had noticed that some people have comments on the minutes of the 24th of February. Rather than delay an in-person meeting, my proposal is we defer approval of those minutes, so that can be put in writing and then maybe a fresh draft presented at the next meeting. That's in order and the meeting is agreed. Is that agreed?
Agreed.
Thank you. I'm going to go to the minutes of the 24th of March, which I'm now struggling to find. Oh, here we are, page 25. Are those minutes agreed?
Agreed.
Agreed. Thank you very much. Item 3, declarations of interest. Are there any declarations of interest? I'm not seeing any other hands. I'm just going to say that on agenda item 8, I'm going to ask a question which is of interest to my ward, East Ham North. That would be obvious when I ask it. It's about the corridor that's discussed in it. Okay, item 4, determining planning application. Members are asked to note the advice from the Head of Legal Services on determining planning applications. Is that noted?
Noted.
Right. Now it's from the Chair. Committees would be received the following request to address the committee. Please could members, please could names identify themselves. We've got, and maybe I can have assistance if they're remote. Deborah Heenan. No. Okay. John Archibald. Not okay. Clerk. Okay, this is not looking great. Kevin Wong. Sean Groves. Right, this is the applicant team for agenda item 6. Come back to that. I will deal with objects in a minute. Let's sort out item 6 in a moment. But item 7, do we have Robert White and Chris Wheaton?
Here we go. Robert White here representing the client, yes.
Thank you very much. Agenda item 8, do we have Graham Allison? Joanne Spiller?
Sorry, Chair. Yes, Graham Allison is here.
Thank you. Joanne Spiller? David Tucker? Thank you. Amar Murphy? Smith? Boomerang? No. Graham Allison. Oh, that's the same person. Right. Agenda item 9, James Singer.
Yes, Joe, I am here on behalf of the applicant.
And agenda item 10, Nick Taylor and Andrew Haynes.
Yes, Chair. Nick Taylor speaking. I am present and available to speak to the committee.
Thank you. So we have teams for all the items apart from the applicant team for agenda item 6.
Checks.
We'll check. So we might deal with some other items first. Can I just check? We've got the objective for that. Agent Lexi present. And there were some late requests to speak. I don't know if any of these are here. Asad Mansour.
Yes.
Shahid Raja.
Yeah.
Mary Sumrax. Sultan Hussain. And Khan Badura. So there's 3 of you at the moment. There's 3 of you. Right. Okay. My proposal to the meeting is that we allow applicants and objectors 5 minutes each to speak. They do not have to use the 5 minutes, particularly given the nature of things. We had one objector on agenda item 6 to speak in time. We had some late requests. If you can manage that 5 minutes between you, I'm happy to allow others to speak, but it will be 5 minutes in total. Is that acceptable to the committee? Okay, so I'll invite the objector to speak first. If he wants to hand over some of his time to late request, that's a matter for him and conversation with his fellow objectors. Well, there isn't really anything to clarify. If you're the registered objector, you have 5 minutes to speak. If you wish to, if you come with other people and you wish to share that time, that's a matter for you, but I will restrict the time to 5 minutes. Okay? Total of 5 minutes. Yes. Right. Do we have any news on the app?
I still trying to trace them down, Chair.
Okay. Well, my proposal was to take agenda item 10 after agenda item 6. And if all parties are happy, I might just proceed to agenda item 10 Jane has her hand up there, and I'm just.
Yes, I've just emailed the applicant. I think they're in the wrong Zoom link. So myself and Shirley or Joy have resent the right link. So hopefully they'll be with us shortly. But I think it's maybe a good idea to do, as you say, and do 10 first, just so that we get everybody in the meeting before we hear that item.
Okay, right. So, if that's okay with my fellow committee members, agenda item 10. I can't remember now. Was it Nick Taylor or Andrew Hayes might be addressing us? I'm hoping that's going to be a brief address. Is that right?
As Chair, this is Nick Taylor speaking. I'm present. I hope you can hear me and see me.
Yes.
Shall I go ahead?
Yes, please.
Chair, members of the committee, I'd just like to report that in the last few days we have had very positive and constructive discussions with your officers. I'm pleased to say we are almost in agreement now with the scheme, and that your officers will be able in due course to support it, but we just need a little bit more time to finalise the heads of terms of the 106 agreement, in particular relating to affordable housing. And we would be happy to, if the committee deferred consideration of the application tonight, we are happy for our part to allow an extension of time so that matters can be drawn to a close by the time of the next committee meeting.
Thank you. So there's a suggestion from the applicant team to defer. Do we need a proposal from the members to support that? Do we need?
Yes.
Rachel, would you like to propose?
Yes.
Alan, would you like to second? Is that agreed? Deferral?
Agreed.
Agreed, that's unanimous. That agenda item 10 is deferred. Thank you very much, Mr. Taylor, for attending. As you see, efficient in the circumstances. Thank you. Right, do we have progress on agenda item 6? Thank you. Can I go to agenda item 7, which I'm also hoping may be quick? Agenda item 7 is on page 159. That's Mr. White and Mr. Peterson. Did you intend to address us, or are you happy to us to proceed?
No, we weren't intending to address you, so yeah, happy for you to proceed. Thank you.
Okay, fine. Is there an officer presentation from a new and planning officer?
Yes, Pontoon Duck, yes.
Yeah, thank you.
Okay. Sorry, let me just share my screen. Can everybody see that?
Yes, thank you.
Thank you, Chair. Good evening, members. Item 7 relates to the Pontoon Duck development on North Woolwich Road, in Silvertown. So the maps to show the location of it. Pontoon Duck DLR lies immediately to the north of the site, whilst the Thames Barrier Park lies to the south and west. To the east is a large residential development known as Waterside Heights. The wider area has seen a significant change over recent years with the introduction of a number of new residential developments. As you can see, the development is substantially complete and it is being progressively occupied. Here's some visuals of the extant scheme. It's worth noting that with the exception of some affordable rent units, discount market rent units and shared ownership, all the private units are private rental. It is predominantly a PRS scheme. So this application is Section 73 application to vary condition 2 to include a 10-year plan reflecting the change of 39 of the approved homes from shared ownership to discount market rent. The scheme, the extent scheme was for the demolition of the existing ramp and associated structures and redevelopment of the site to deliver 236 residential units along with commercial floor space. The key planning considerations are the principle of development, affordable housing and housing mix. In terms of the principle of development, the proposed development would continue to provide 236 new homes whilst bringing a vacant site into beneficial use, making a positive contribution towards housing target delivery within an existing residential environment. The principle of development is therefore supported. The proposals provide the same overall level of affordable housing as the extant scheme, which is 34.7%. They also provide the same 10-year split between affordable rent and intermediate homes. Where the proposals differ from the extant scheme is that the intermediate homes would all be provided in the form of discount market rent, and there would no longer be any shared ownership homes. The affordable housing in the consented scheme is located entirely within Block A, and the 39 shared ownership units currently under consideration for conversion to discount market rent are on the 8th to the 14th floors of this block. Block A is the one coloured red and yellow. So the red units would be are the converted discount market rent units. The homes would be let at an equivalent affordability to the approved shared ownership homes. The proposals have been reviewed by BNP Paribas and they are satisfied that it would not be viable to provide any more affordable housing than currently proposed. The proposals in terms of affordable housing are therefore supported. In the extant scheme, the 39 shared ownership units were the only units available to purchase. The majority of the units in the scheme were either affordable rent, discount market rent or market rent. The increase in rental units from 83.5% to 100% is considered to be acceptable in relation to the wider character of the development.
Claire, I think you've muted yourself, but we can see the screen with the subsequent bullet.
Apologies. Future occupants would have the option of 3-year tenancies with rent and service charge certainty, which would encourage longer stays, thereby contributing to stability of the community. The proposals in terms of housing mix are supported. Neighbouring occupiers have been consulted and 7 letters of objection have been received. These objections have been addressed in the committee report on pages 173 to 175. And to conclude, the Strategic Development Committee is asked to note the committee update, which refers to which is a clarification from the applicant on a neighbour objection, and resolve to agree the reasons for approval as set out in the report and delegate authority to the Director of Planning and Development to grant planning permission subject to conditions differing from those subject to which previous permission was granted based on the conditions listed in Appendix 1 and subject to the amendments to the Section 106 agreement at Appendix 2 of the report. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Are there any questions or comments from members? I'm not seeing any. Maybe move to a vote. Okay, the recommendation is for approval. It seems quite straightforward and marginally a positive benefit.
Chair, do we have objectors wanting to speak on this application?
No, I think there are objections are put in writing, which obviously we considered, but no one wished to speak. Okay. Yeah.
Just checking. Thank you.
Thank you. No, good point. Okay, we'll move to vote. The recommendation is for approval on page 161 to 162. All those in favour? That's 5. That's unanimous. Thank you very much. So that's agenda item 7 concluded. Right. Are we in a position to proceed? Thank you. Do you want to look at it then? They are, so they should be able to hear me. Okay. Can I confirm we have Deborah Heenan?
Yes, Chair.
Thank you. Claire, could you take down your screen sharing? Thank you. And do we have John Archibald? Do we have David Chalmers?
Yes, Chair, we do.
Thank you. Helen Clark?
Yes, Chair.
Thank you. Kevin Wong? Thank you. And Sean Groves?
Yes, Chair.
Thank you. Between you, you are the applicant team, I understand. You have 5 minutes to address the committee, and because of the public health emergency, I'm going to be extremely strict. So you may start now.
Okay. Good afternoon, Chair and members. I'm Deborah Heenan. I'm Chief Exec of Populo Living. I'm going to talk briefly about 3 things: Populo Living, the ageing population, and how it relates to this particular scheme. So Populo Living is wholly owned by Newham Council. It started life as Red Door Ventures, and it was repurposed in 2018 by the current administration. So the developer profits still stays here in Newham Council, but the administration changed so that we would directly reinvest all our profit and build a higher proportion of genuinely affordable homes. So our mission is now threefold: social, more homes, more affordable homes; economic, making better places and creating jobs; and environmental, healthy places and reduced emissions and reduced bills for residents. So that's us as Populo. On an ageing population, we've looked at the data, spoken to our colleagues in the council, in particular in the housing department and adult social care, and there are 2 overriding trends in the borough. One is that although we've got a young population, we've also got an ageing population at the other side of the demographic, and that trend of ageing is going to continue. In 2018, 15% of households were over 55 and another 15 over 65. But by 2043, that proportion will grow to 40% of households being over 55. That's 35,000 households in the borough. The second trend that we have is that although Newham is very overcrowded in some parts, it's also underoccupied in other parts because we've got that ageing population often living alone in what was their family house. So for the Hartley, what we're proposing is to build 75 100% London affordable rent homes, 1 and 2 beds, and to design them as we have for the HAPPY national design principles. So that's Housing and Ageing Population Panel for Innovation. And in essence, it's about designing to enable people to live well into an older age. Better space, better social space, so a communal lounge and terrace. Much brighter because daylight becomes very important when you're retired and spending more time inside, and being right beside the things you need. So bus stops, into the travel into the town centre, and we're right on top of a healthcare centre. From all the research we have done in this area, the results are actually quite stark. And what they tell us is that if you live in a home like the ones that we have designed at the Hartley, you're half as likely to have a fall, half as likely to feel lonely. You won't live in a damp or cold home, so you're much less susceptible to heart disease, heart attack, stroke. And overall, in terms of your health, you will be more than half as likely to need to visit your your GP in any given 12-month period. So our proposal at the site is following these principles and providing a great gateway into East Ham itself, and to raise the quality of the area in a similar way to the schemes that we've built at the Brickyard, the Town Hall Annex, Didsbury, and again, working closely with the design review panel, in particular for this scheme, because it's a first for us in the borough to design a scheme of this type. And finally, Chair, I realised that there were some concerns around 2 issues in particular. how we carried out the consultation and the daylight sunlight. So on those two issues, I would be very happy to bring in our respective experts, Sean on the consultation and Kevin on the daylight sunlight.
Okay, but you have 50 seconds left. So good luck.
I think then I propose, Chair, just to pick up any questions that members might have on the consultation issue, and I think Kaivan can do the same on the daylight sunlight if that works for you, with just 50 seconds remaining.
No, that's definitely very helpful. Thank you very much. Okay, I'm sure members will ask questions if they have them. Right, so the objectors, I understand from our officers that we're going to invite the objectors to come and address us over on these tables here, if you'd like to come forward. Okay, so as you saw from a moment ago, fair to both sides of the both applicants and objectors. They have 3 speakers and they run out of time, so the same principle applies. I will start in a second, and you have the 5 minutes. I'll try and give you a 1-minute warning, but I'll do it so I try not to interrupt the seconds. Thanks.
So this is clarification. If I were to ask questions, that be part of it, or is that
if you want to use your time to ask questions, that's fine, and then we, committee members can decide whether they're questions they want to pursue. So it's up to you how you use your time.
Thank you. Carry on. Okay, thank you, Chair. Thank you for giving us this opportunity to come here. I just want to make sure that you've received all the emails and photos and all the correspondences which I forwarded to members and to officers. We've read the report and we got the report late, that should be noted. We've asked for the officers to let us know what was happening, that was never done. So we got the reports late, so it gave us very little time to do the work we did. And I'd like to point out to the letter from the Right Honourable Stephen Tim, who clearly says that he does not support this application on the basis of where the consultation was not done properly, because it was done during a post-lockdown period. And Neum is a very diverse area, and you've got a lot of aged people who don't speak English as first language, they're not IT savvy. Therefore, they have lots of difficulties, and we found that in the petition, which we also sent to you. There were 82 residents in that area who totally strongly objected to the proposals. And I hope you have had right time to read them. Clearly, they have picked up the issues which the CEO has picked up, which is on sunlight and consultation. But also, I think the CEO has picked up the issue about parking and privacy. They are also fairly important for us to address. In all 4 areas, this report does say that the benefits of affordable housing outweighs the problem and the impact on residents in that area, which I think is totally in disregard to the residents' views, because the residents support the surgery, residents do support the council's attainment of affordable housing, but we just feel it's a wrong design. We feel that having a 9-story, in this report it says the size is very small. Having a 9-story, 7-story, 5-story to meet the objective of having 75, 55 plus people who've got wheelchair accommodation, and there is no information here about parking, because it says that 4% for disabled, blue badge disabled holders, but there is no assessment here. It says how many of the residents will have blue badge are disabled holders. It doesn't have any information in terms of how many residents who visit the 14,000 plus patients for the 2 surgeries will have blue badge disabled. All they are affording is giving 5 disabled spaces. And at the moment, the important thing to note is the pre-COVID parking survey they did. They did not do it. The report clearly says they did not do a post-COVID parking. Things are different. People are working from home. because of COVID, residents did not go out. They didn't see the notice. The popular claims that they have dropped the notice, I didn't get any notification. I only found out right at the end. And that's when I started writing my emails. So I feel that there was a complete letdown for Popular. I just live next door. My house is 6 meters away. My wall faces this 9-story building. Right? There'll be dust, there'll be all kinds of issues there. And I already had problems when they were demolishing the site. And also, my house is weakened by subsidence. None of this has been taken into account in the decision making. I feel what we should do is defer the report so that further work can be done. I like to point out to 2 experts' reports which were sent by email to me. One is David Sermon from Brook Vincent Partner, another one from Mansfield Homes, which is they're both reputable lighting experts in this area.
1 minute.
And they have clearly said that the impact is disastrous. If you look at the pictures at the end, you will find overshadowing in 2 Hartley Avenue is 100%. And that only takes into account March 21st and June 21st. After June 21st, the sun sets, the sun comes down, there will be more overshadowing. So effectively, what the experts are saying is that we will only get 3 months of sunlight, and they cannot guarantee a 2-hour sunlight. That will have detrimental effect to my garden. I've got lots of stuff they will kill out my horticulture, and I won't be able to enjoy my garden. Let alone the legal issues around the lighting. So I think that is a challenge which we will take forward to, and we will be seeking legal advice on this to stop this, because we feel on all 4 aspects, we, the residents, have been let down. We have not even consulted us with 82 residents, and for them to say that they have consulted post-COVID, pre-COVID, and post-COVID, the time frame is very short. So, Chair, I'd like you to either reject this or defer it. Thank you.
If you want to stay there, there may be questions. What I'd like to do is hear from our planning officer who's going to do a presentation. Then there might be questions both to you and to the applicant team. So if we can do it in that order. So, yes, sorry, I haven't got which officer it is. Apologies. Robin Bennett, I think. Thank you.
Yes, thank you, Chair. Good evening, members. I'll just share my screen. Can I just check that that is showing to everyone?
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah. So item 6, 267 Barking Road. This is the officer presentation. These drawings just show the site location in East Ham. I'm just going to quickly run through some photos that I took when I did my site visit. This is just looking up from Barking Road in an easterly direction towards the former Granada Cinema, now occupied by Flip Out. This is a closer shot of the site, just looking towards the Flip Out Trampoline Centre and the vacant site. This is a view from Arnold Avenue looking towards the empty site. And this is from Hartley Avenue looking into the site across to Flip Out. And this is looking back down from Hartley Avenue towards Barking Road with the site just on the left. And this is looking down Winter Avenue, and that's the back of the Flip Out former Granada Cinema building and the terraces on Winter Avenue. This is again looking at Winter Avenue, and then the proposed site is just through that gap in between the terraces. And this is further to the north, which is the Hartley Primary School. So the application is for full planning permission for the construction of a Part 5, Part 7 and Part 9 storey mixed use development comprising 1,646 square metres of community use / health centre use class E1 and age restricted residential accommodation being 75 1 and 2 bedroom apartments, which is use class C3, with associated parking, 9 car parking spaces and cycle parking, public realm improvements and landscaping. Some images of the proposed development. So this is looking from Barking Road, looking to the frontage, the 9-storey tallest block to the left, and then 7 stories to the right, and the health centre entrance in the middle. This is a closer up view of the health centre entrance. This is just an image of an entrance to the residential core, which is next to Hartley Avenue. This is a view across the courtyard, the communal residence garden at podium level in between the interfacing blocks. And this is an image looking down Hartley Avenue when the trees aren't in leaf. And this is looking up Arnold Avenue across Barking Road and looking east along Barking Road towards the town centre. So the key planning considerations are the principle of development, affordable housing, design and tall buildings, heritage, impact on amenity, and transport and travel. So in terms of the principal development, the site is located within strategic site in the local plan, SO3 East Ham Western Gateway. In that area, mixed use development comprising residential and community uses, which make efficient use of the site and have design and public realm reflecting the town centre gateway location and key corridor status are supported in principle. And the local plan allocation indicates the buildings of between 6 and 8 stories are likely to be acceptable. The site is also within a community facility opportunity area. So the red edge is the site, and then the opportunity area is in the hatched. So moving on to the principle, the residential development of the site first. So residential development, as I stated, is within the site allocation. So in principle, it's acceptable from a high level perspective. In terms of the type of residential accommodation that's proposed, it's older persons housing, and the London plan sets an annual benchmark of 85 units for Newham for delivery of specialist older person housing. The proposed development of 75 units will make a significant contribution to the London plan benchmark, and officers consider this weighs significantly in the proposal's favour. Information provided with the application advises that 436 existing Newham tenants aged over 55 have expressed an interest in downsizing. The quality of alternative smaller accommodation has been identified as barrier to downsizing, and this includes things like access to local amenities, safety and security, and affordability, including utility costs. Officers are satisfied that there is a demonstrable need for the type of accommodation that is proposed, and that it will go a significant way to meeting the annual benchmark set out in the London plan. The proposed development will be an attractive proposition for those in need of accommodation, as it's been specifically designed with the needs of older people in mind. It'll be a high quality inclusive design, close to local amenities and social infrastructure, safe and secure, energy efficient and well located for public transport. All these factors, together with the 100% genuinely affordable nature of the development, weigh significantly in the proposal's favour. Members will note that there is no family-sized units within the development, and this is a direct consequence of the age-restricted nature of the proposed accommodation. Notwithstanding this, the proposed development of older persons housing will play an important role in terms of contributing to an inclusive and successful neighbourhood. Officers consider that it will be a positive addition to the housing stock in East Ham, and it's recommended that the principle of older persons housing on the site is supported. Moving on to the health centre, the proposed health centre is located within a community facility opportunity area, which is an identified area of research for facilities such as this. It's also a use that is appropriate within a strategic site where major new development is proposed, including a significant uplift in residential accommodation. And this is reflected by community uses being identified as appropriate in the strategic site allocation. In addition, the site at the former Hartley Centre has been identified as a strategically important site for the Health and Care Space Newham, a joint venture between the Council and the East Ham Foundation Trust. The site is identified in Newham's infrastructure delivery plan as a non-allocated site. It's proposed that the new facility will rehouse 2 GP practices under one roof within the same local community that they currently serve. The applicant states that the GP practices are currently within premises that are unsuitable and do not offer the chance to expand in order to respond to need. On this basis, the future of the practices as they currently stand are limited. The provision of a modern purpose-built facility which is located in a very sustainable location for their catchments and which will increase capacity is positive and meets an identified need. For these reasons, the principle of a new health centre is supported. Moving on to affordable housing, the proposed offer is that 100% of the units will be affordable. All 75 would be for rent, with rent levels set at London affordable rents. The application was accompanied by a financial viability assessment. The FVA was required because of the proposal deviating from LBN's policies of 60% social housing and 40% intermediate housing in residential developments, and also because there's no family housing in the development. The viability assessment was scrutinised on behalf of LBN by BNP Paribas, and a deficit of 3.9 million was identified. Officers consider the affordable housing offer as acceptable when having regard to the viability position, the scale of the development, and the age-restricted, genuinely affordable nature of the development. Identified deficit and the 100% affordable nature means that no review mechanism is necessary, nor is a commuted sum payment required for off-site provision of family housing. Moving to design and tall buildings. In relation to tall buildings, as I mentioned earlier, the strategic site allocation for SO3 specifies an indicative building height of 6 to 8 stories. The proposed building heights are at their tallest 1 story in excess of the indicative heights for this site. But whilst that's the case, the proposals have been independently reviewed by Newham DRP, who are supportive of the scheme, including the scale. In arriving at this view, DRP took into account the overall quality of design, including significant improvement to the public realm along Barking Road, and the quality of architecture and residential accommodation. The immediate context is predominantly low-rise terraced houses and low-rise mixed-use properties. The development clearly represents a significant increase in scale over these properties. However, there are large buildings in the area, including those under construction at East Ham Market, the former St John's Road car park, and existing buildings such as the former Granada Cinema, now Flip Out, and the Hartley Primary School. The site allocation envisages transformative change within the strategic site, and this is consistent with London Plan and local plan policies on intensification of sites in sustainable locations that benefit from good transport links and access to the town centre and other facilities. For these reasons, the height of the development is considered to be in accordance with tall building policies. In terms of more general points on design, the health centre entrance and communal entrances provide active frontages to the street, helping to enliven this part of Barking Road, with activity to the front of the development being beneficial within this gateway location. The setback health centre entrance will create space for a generously landscaped zone around it, while the proposals include enhancements to the public realm along Barking Road, including new tree planting, seating and cycle parking. Architecturally, the proposal is considered to be of high quality. It would be constructed from red brick with a variety of mortar colours and brick bonds to provide richness and interest. Deep set windows will provide depth and shadow to the elevations, while white balconies and textured metal parapets will provide highlights and moments of contrast. The proposal is therefore considered to be appropriate from a tall building and design perspective, and quality will be secured in the delivery phase via compliance with conditions on materials and details, as well as retention of the project architect. Turning to heritage assets have been identified in the locality, including East Ham Town Centre Conservation Area and a number of listed buildings, the Fellowship House, Denmark Arms Public House, East Ham Town Hall Complex, and the former East Ham Police Station, and then a couple of locally listed buildings, which are the former Granada Cinema, now Flip Out, and Hartley School. Having regard to the distance between the conservation area and the listed buildings and the site and the intervening built form, it's concluded that there will be no substantial harmful impacts on the setting and significance of designated heritage assets. The locally listed former cinema immediately adjacent to the site and the Hartley School 150 metres to the south, to the north, The design approach demonstrates an understanding of the significance of the locally listed buildings setting and will not result in substantial harm to them. The proposals respect the primary architectural significance of the nearby locally listed buildings. The impact on heritage assets from the conservation area to the listed and the locally listed buildings has been identified as less than substantial. In cases where less than substantial harm has been identified, it's necessary to consider whether the public benefits of the proposal outweigh the less than substantial harm. In this case, officers considered the public benefits of contributing to genuinely affordable housing, the provision of a new fit-for-purpose health centre, which will increase capacity in the area, bringing a vacant site into productive use, creating areas of new and improved public realm, and making the optimum viable use of the site outweigh the less than substantial harm that's been identified. The proposal is therefore acceptable from a heritage perspective. Turning to impacts on amenity, firstly, daylight and sunlight. The change in levels of daylight will exceed the BRE guidelines in some cases. However, this is not unexpected given the existing site is undeveloped. Any development in accordance with the strategic site allocation will result in a noticeable loss of daylight and sunlight. The proposed development will result in overshadowing to properties on Winter Avenue and Hartley Avenue, and gardens will experience a large amount of additional overshadowing on the spring equinox date, but virtually no additional overshadowing on the summer solstice when the sun is at its highest. Overshadowing impacts will be unavoidable if a development is to come forward in a manner which is envisaged by the site allocation and in a form which is appropriate with a dense and well-connected urban area. Officers consider the effects on neighbours will be very noticeable, particularly as residents will likely have become accustomed to the site being cleared, or indeed when considering the historic context of the lower level single and two-storey building that once occupied the site. Whilst that is the case, officers consider the harm that's been identified is outweighed when taking into account the transformative change that's envisaged by the site allocation, the substantial contribution this development will make to meeting the borough's annual need for older persons housing, the delivery of genuinely affordable homes, new and improved public realm areas, and a new purpose-built health centre. Turning to privacy, overlooking and outlook impacts, the allocation promotes tall buildings on the site. It would therefore be reasonable to expect that new tall buildings will be built in close proximity to existing developments, including people's homes and gardens, and that they may be designed with windows and balconies to multiple sides, including at high levels. The introduction of a building which is up to 9 stories in height on a cleared site will undoubtedly result in a highly noticeable and very different outlook for existing residents surrounding the site. Development will result in a high level overlooking in the direction of existing gardens and windows, and even when future residents of the development are not actively looking out of the windows or using their balconies, it's highly likely that existing residents will experience the perception of overlooking from the development. Whilst officers have identified harm to the privacy and outlook of existing residents, the site allocation is a significant material consideration which must be taken into account in determining whether the identified impacts are acceptable. This, together with the other benefits of the delivery of genuinely affordable homes, delivery of older persons housing, delivery of a purpose-built health centre and public realm improvements, are considered to sufficiently outweigh the identified harm. Finally, in terms of noise and air quality, LBN Environmental Health were consulted on the proposal and they didn't object subject to recommended conditions being attached to the permission if it's granted. Assuming those conditions and construction phase impacts such as construction logistic plan are attached to any decision, officers consider that noise and air quality impacts will be adequately mitigated through construction and operational phase. So in summary, officers consider the proposed development will result in harm to existing residents, but this is considered to be outweighed by the benefits of the development. Moving on to transport on travel, the site has a PTAL of between 3 and 4, which is good access to public transport. It does sit very close to a PTAL 6 area, being East Ham Town Centre. The application proposes public realm and highways changes and features, including provision of cycle parking for visitors, street trees and benches to the frontage of Parking Road. Changes were also proposed to bays on Hartley Avenue to facilitate refuse and recycling collections and short stops, for example, by people using the health centre. Active travel zone improvements have been identified in the applicant's transport assessments. That's small-scale interventions to improve walking around the area, say installation of seating or improving of some defective pavements, and there would be a planning obligation to secure that. Long and short stay bicycle parking is proposed, and this is quite an unusual development in that it provides some spaces within the residential developments themselves. So 58 of the flats would have space for horizontal indoor parking, which could be a particular benefit if older residents are using their bikes to go shopping, so they can bring things straight back into their flat. There's limited on-site parking proposed, only 9 spaces in total, with 4 of those being blue badge. No visitor parking is proposed on site, and we're recommending that there's a restriction on access to parking permits for both the residential units and the health centre use. Car club membership is recommended, as well as driving credit for each residential unit. So in summary, transportation matters are considered acceptable subject to the relevant conditions and heads of terms. Other considerations, as per those shown on the screen, all justification for why they're considered to be complied with is in the report, and I'm happy to take any questions on those matters if required. In terms of the application consultation, there are actually 2 rounds of consultation done, with the latest being in February when revised plans and information was submitted. In total, we've received 11 responses, well, I should say 11 unique addresses. Some addresses have more than 1 response received from them. And also a petition was submitted, which was organised by number 2 Hartley Avenue, and that has 82 names and addresses objecting. So to the Officer recommendation now, Strategic Development Committee is asked to note the committee update and resolve to agree the reasons for approval as set out in the report, refer the application to the Mayor of London as a stage 2 referral, and subject to the Mayor of London or delegated authorised officer advising that he is content to allow the council to determine the application itself, delegate authority to the Director of Planning and Development to grant permission, subject to a unilateral undertaking based on the heads of terms identified at Appendix 2 of the report and the conditions listed in Appendix 1 of the report.
Thank you. Can I mention to members, since we did introductions, I understand we have present both the chair of our independent design review panel and our strategic design manager, should you have questions for them. What I'd like to do is take comments and questions from members as a whole, and then once we've worked out what the interesting points are, then go back either to applicant, objector, or the officers. So who has questions or comments? I see Rachel, I have a couple, but Rachel, go first.
A couple of quick comments first, Chair, which perhaps we can take up offline. The first is, I was very struck from the officer presentation about the importance of the site allocation in weighing this application up. And it occurs to me that not only is that very material to the decision we make today, but it also must be very frustrating for residents who live alongside it, maybe either weren't aware that it was a site allocated for really quite intensive use, or perhaps had been aware but had forgotten so. And I just wondered if we could take away for the future, I know there's a review of the local plan coming up, particularly as ward councillors, how can we engage really well with our residents where there are these empty areas where residents have become used to a lot of light and a lot of open aspect, and have really realistic conversations with them about what might be coming in future. So the second comment, again, which I don't expect anyone to address, is I noted that there are some trees being removed from the site and more trees are being planted. And I just wanted to say for the minutes that I would normally really hope that a new development would retain existing trees and plant additional trees wherever it could. And I know that I'm sure the Populo will have looked at this site and tried to retain as much greenery as possible. I would be interested in hearing briefly from Neil Dealey about whether the issues raised by the design review panel on page 69 have been resolved. But my only other two questions were really firstly about the quantum of short stay cycle parking, which I think is only 8 spaces for visitors, and which does strike me as being very small, given the multitude of uses going on here. And I also wondered about space for adapted e-bikes or cargo bikes, particularly bikes for people with disabilities. And related to that, I share some of the concerns of the objectors about the level of disabled parking which might be required once any development was filled. And I wondered what thinking the applicants had done about how we might stop all the surrounding streets being filled up incrementally, one by individual resident applications for blue bays, each of which might well be very compelling, but taken together might be a number that would not be very helpful.
Thank you. I'm going to come back to those. They're not dissimilar to my questions. So, but do you have did you see your hand up?
Yes, I did, Chair.
John.
Chair, I think Councillor Tripp has picked up one point on page 69 anyway about the design reviews comments. So it'd be interesting to find out what initiatives have been undertaken to try to resolve these issues. And similarly with the parking, considering that this is predominantly an area where we're looking to see that we are going to try to encourage or have a facility for under 55s who might be single, might have families living quite a distance outside the borough. Those people and the lack of parking facility that's available for them is my concern, because when we look at the communities that are moving into the borough and also the communities that are living, there are families who have a lot of relatives outside the boroughs as far as Leeds and abroad. So that needs to be taken on board seriously, and the number of parking spaces for the disabled is not really acceptable to me, considering that we're putting a health centre there and there are going to be people with health issues coming there as well. Thank you.
Thank you. John Whitworth, I will summarise these points again in a moment. John.
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, I've got a couple of questions. One, there's been hardly any mention, there's a little scant mention, in fact, in the report of mobility scooters. Given the population of the site, it's quite possible that a number of the residents will have mobility scooters, and the internal storage space for bicycles has this space been calculated also with mobility scooters in mind? That's my first question. And the other question is, we are told that because of GLA grant funding, up to 10% of the rents could go to people outside the borough. I wondered how this allocation would be managed.
Sorry, John, can you just repeat that last sentence for me? Sorry.
We are told that up to 10% of the rentals could go to people who are not residents of Newham. And I just wondered how this 10% would be allocated, how that would be managed.
Okay. Right, there's, I'm going to ask first, can Neil Dealey perhaps come in first? Two people have asked about concerns on page 69 of our report, and I wondered if you could tell us whether in your view they have been addressed.
Okay, first of all, I chaired this meeting instead of Neil, and I chair some of the other panels as well. So it's not the first time I've done this. It's only the second time I've come in front of the committee, though. Ben, could you please remind me, because I don't have the report in front of me, what the questions were on page 69?
So, Rachel, can you, am I right? I'm looking at that social landscape is lagging behind.
Yes, there were a few things. Sorry, I'm just going to try and summarise now. It says, for example, we suggested exploring the introduction of white bricks to define the tops of the buildings. The base could be made to read more emphatically onto Barking Road to give the building more of a civic presence. It says there's some complexity in the interface with the trampolining centre that's not yet successfully resolved. And it says about encouraging the applicant to speak to the landowner and about aligning the frontages on Hartley Avenue to create continuous frontage and a clearer definition of public and private space.
So actually, it's on page 70. If you just hold off a moment.
Chair, just to add that on top of page 70, the concern about the building privacy, also the balconies seem to be substantially solid.
Yeah, okay. I hope you've heard that, but basically a lot of concerns that were summarised, and have they been addressed in your view? How serious are they?
There were two formal design reviews, and there was a third chairs meeting with myself and the landscape architect to look specifically at landscape items and particularly the boundaries on Hartley Avenue and the adjacency to the trampoline centre. I think the panel felt that many of the comments from the first review were taken on board and that the project had significantly improved, and we felt that it was a very high quality design and that the applicants had engaged with us to quite an extent in the process. So we were happy that all of those things were resolved, and that in terms of the architectural quality of the project, that this is a very good project.
Okay, are you happy with that answer? Okay, I'm seeing nods. Okay, thank you very much. Can we actually, shall we quickly deal with John Whitworth's question about allocation, because there's quite a few about transport. So I don't know if that's Robin Bennett or someone else. How will it be allocated generally, and specifically the 10% that may not be new residents? Can we have some assistance? Maybe it's the applicant team, in fact. Who would I be looking at?
Chair, if I may, I can say that we've been having ongoing discussions with policy in the council about joining this development with more marketing to local residents who are particularly suited to the scheme and are currently under occupying family accommodation. And the consideration would be a local lettings policy that does sit with LBN colleagues in the housing department.
So what about the non-Newark residents? How would they apply, and then how would they be allocated? I think it's what John wants to understand. Yeah.
So again, given that that sits with housing policy, the detail in the allocations with the council, would be happy to follow up with a written note if that's helpful.
Well, it's not very helpful today.
No.
I think allocation is something that we do want to understand. So if anyone else can assist us, maybe I'll give people a moment. Should we? Oh, Amanda.
It might well be that all of our nominations and lettings are usually Newham first, and there's an eligibility criteria, and that they're offered to Newham residents first, and then it usually cascades down so that the unit doesn't sit empty for long periods of time. So let's say there isn't anyone over a specific age who is a resident who's applied for take-up, and this has been ongoing for some time. Then in some circumstances, units are offered outside the borough in accordance with other criteria. So I would imagine this is where this requirement may well come from. Or it might be something more specific. If the 10% is absolutely concrete and set in stone, that's something the applicant will need to fill you in on.
Okay, I mean, I'm interpreting by up to 10%, it may be that the need is such that it will actually end up being 100% new residents. Perhaps that is the position, but as you say, we don't want housing to be left empty in Greater London where there's huge need. Okay, if I may park that, is that okay, John?
Yes, yes.
Thank you. Right, can we deal with transport? And I don't know if Lorinda wants to come on some of these. I hope you heard some of the questions. If I could just add to it, I was also, well, I'm interested in whether the disabled parking deemed acceptable is deemed acceptable as a general residential precaution, and I'm talking about the residential here, or it is tailored towards an over 55 development where you may have different transport needs to a standard residential development where there's policy around blue badge parking. And secondly, whether in time, and my reading is this would not be possible as drafted at the moment, some of the standard parking bays assigned to the health centre could be reassigned as blue badge parking rather than the danger, which I think was mentioned, of encroaching on the street parking in time. So either Robin or Lorinda, can you assist us?
Thank you, Chair. Through you. Yes, let's take the car parking one first, which is the disabled one, blue badge parking. How we look at this is, yeah, quite right in the terms of that, you know, people can apply for those and they can be delivered on site. There was a parking stress survey done in October last year, which demonstrated the current parking stress is at 69%. So there are something like 213 car parking spaces are available on street out of the 691 spaces, which been surveyed within a 200-meter survey area, which is in line with the adopted methodology for a parking stress survey. But the other way we are looking to reduce the need by car for blue badges to introduce mobility scooter provisions within the development. We have done that, Chair, within the town centre locations. I think it was mentioned earlier, the Brickyard site, where we've got charging points for the mobility scooters. This site does have on site within each development a mobility scooter charging facility as well. So the whole concept and the way the policy that we are trying to approach the blue badge parking is to encourage the mobility scooters rather than the car parking in locations which are of high PTELs. So this is in a PTEL 4 and just a stone throw from a town centre location. So the need by the car is reduced quite considerably, and there should be a promotion, and I'm sure there will be through the travel plan, to encourage the use of mobility scooters within the development site to have access to the daily needs within the location of the site. So, but saying that, you know, the assessment is made on the basis. Sorry, I've got another call coming. I'm just going to cancel that. Sorry about that. The whole concept, as I said, is trying to encourage non-car use within the site. But if the need becomes there is ample parking provision in the vicinity, based on the parking stress survey that's been given to us, that they can be accommodated. It is a difficult one because, you know, this particular development is not the standard development where we know what the likelihood of the blue badge parking would be. But we shouldn't really rule out the fact that it's going to be a lot more. We shouldn't say that, because we hope that people would use alternative means. I don't know if you want to come back on that, Chair, on the blue badge parking provision. Then I can go on to the cycle parking provision thereafter.
I'm just having a think. I'm looking at members. I sort of feel like I have got your questions, and I can't quite articulate them, which is why I was looking for help. So can I can I go back to my question? Can I clarify? The standard parking in the development for the health centre, is there a way to transfer that to the same parking in due course, or is that just not going to be possible once we've consented the scheme?
When you have a standard development, you are looking at 3 to 7% of the total units that may require blue badge parking. Here we have used the same formula, but we haven't been able to quantify exactly what the likelihood would be. But the way that we have approached this, that is, it's a high PTEL close to a town centre, and encouragement of use of mobility scooters rather than car use be encouraged. And that's how we looked at this particular development in approach to the blue badge parking. But generally, in terms of the car parking for the whole of the development, for both the commercial and the residential, as you know, is car free. So there won't be any parking permits issue for any of the owners, occupiers, and the staff. And so there won't be any overspill. Can I just make that clear? There won't be any overspill standard parking from the development, because it's been controlled by the restriction of parking permits.
No, I understand that completely. I remember what my other question was, when I was uncertain. On page 136 is a plan of the ground floor with the disabled parking marked on the top, sideways, the top right. It seems quite far from the residential entrances, unless I've misread the plan. And is that a suitable distance for blue badge parking, which should be somewhere that, for example, someone who has mobility impairment where they want to get out of the car and walk, but cannot walk very far, and therefore we're eligible for blue badge parking? Is that too far? Because I'm surprised at the location of the residential entrances compared with the blue badge parking application.
Chair, the requirement is 50 meters from the entrance of the building to the car parking space. I think that is probably within reach of that. Perhaps the applicants can confirm that. And I think there might be another access as well to the car parking. I'm just not clear on that one. But yes, I don't know if the applicants could answer that question in terms of the distance to the car parking spaces.
Yeah, is there a member of the applicant team that can help with that?
I can try and cover that. Yeah, it's within 50 metres of core B, of the residential entrance. We've also located the residential disabled bays on the eastern side of the parking court for that reason, and provided secure gated access round to the residential core. So it was quite careful, although we realised that the provision on site of parking would have to be to the rear, and the residential entrances providing active frontage onto Barking Road. We've located them in a way that allows residents to access the residential entrance from the disabled bays. We've also looked at the levels in the area between the parking and the entrances to ensure they meet accessibility requirements.
Yeah, and so the reassurance is that you would anticipate that need, the allocation to be in residential core B rather than residential core A, which does look a lot further away. Is that right?
Yeah, I think, sorry, I couldn't quite catch you there, but I think you were asking about the proximity to core B rather than core A. Yes, that is correct. They were located to allow for that ease of access to core B. But there are a number of on-street disabled parking bays that are in close proximity to Core A as well. But obviously they're not on-site provision.
No, okay. Well, I think we've probably done what we can there. Cycle parking, there were questions from Rachel in particular, and also I think John was asking, when you talk about provision inside the flat, can that be used for mobility scooters in alternative? Is that an adequate summary?
Yes, Chair. I mean, the level of cycle parking is considered adequate. There's 163 cycle parking spaces overall, of which 20 are for the commercial use and for short stay, and the 8 are for short stay for the residential, and 123 for the residential. So the facility which have been provided within this particular development is considered very good quality, and we emphasize that from day one. In regards to Councillor Rachel's question about the short stay parking, which seemed to be below par, it isn't. In fact, the London plan is looking for much less than the 8 parking spaces for the cycle parking spaces for the residential. They only require 3. So they have gone above what we require. So that's fine from our point of view. But I think in regards to the other issues of e-cycle provision, that I think we will have to look through the condition. We can condition that, and when we discharge the condition, there is a condition. When we discharge that, we will certainly look at those through those in terms of what the requirements are. The new London plan has now been adopted, and we will be working to that in terms of what's required. In regards to the cycle parking and the mobility scooter provision, I'm pretty confident that they both can be provided within the provision that's provided.
Okay, is that the members okay with that? Yeah. I've not seen it. Oh, Rachel, yes, do come back.
I just wanted, I don't think we need to make a condition out of it, but I just think if I think through how the building will be used, and I imagine older residents being visited by family, there's no visitor car parking, so say their family members arriving. You've thought this through in the play as well. You talk about no specific play provision, but incidental play because of visiting grandchildren. I think how will those grandchildren be arriving? And is it not possible that a family with 2 parents and 2 children would turn up on 4 bikes and use up almost all the space and then end up lashing bikes to trees or railings? Or, like I say, I don't think it needs to be a condition, but I guess I would just like to be assured that someone will go away and just have a bit of a think about this. How are those families arriving? And if so, and will we have provision for that?
Harvinder's indication.
Sure, yes, I've got the follow-on from Rachel said. Considering what the phase has gone through, there will be families who want to come to visit their elderly. And not having provision to allow an area for children is a concern. And similarly, when we look at the age criteria, 55, I'm just curious about the age limit there, because I think the age limit currently is 60 in the policy. So could we get the clarification on that? If it's 55, 60.
Is so this is a discrete point separate to the transport, which I am kind of anxious to close off, but I want to deal with that point. So I think Rachel has made her point. I don't think there's anything else to say on transport. I can just say we have closed that part of it. But then let's do this point next. I've been just saying 55 or 50. Is there a distinction, is what I'm wondering, between planning policy, which might anticipate a 55 plus scheme, and allocations, which might be different? I don't know. Deborah, you have your hand up.
Thank you, Chair. I can confirm that there will be a local lettings policy targeting over 55s in the borough who are under occupying, and the GLA, the 10%, it's a blanket requirement of all grant and applies to all London boroughs and is a reciprocal arrangement. Though our experience is that we've seen very little take up so far on other schemes.
And no officer is going to suggest Harvinder's recollection of a 60+ policy is.
Can I just come back to that?
Yeah, Harvinder.
The reason I raise this question is that in sheltered accommodation, I understand it's 60. Right? Unless there's a change and there's some talk to be done in interdepartmental, but where we are. I'll just leave it there for you.
Okay. If an officer can come back, Robin, yes, you insist.
Yeah, so London Plan Policy H13 does specify 55 as the minimum.
Right, so that's planning committee particular 55. There might be other policies outside planning that do things differently. Okay, let's leave that one there. I want to come back on a couple of things. Have any outstanding questions? I don't think so. I want to go to the daylight and sunlight issue briefly, which obviously is a concern. And we have been advised that the expectation in the plan was that a scheme on this site would be 6 to 8 stories. And Rachel mentioned the need for appreciation of that point. Is there a difference in the impact? Is there a considerable difference in the impact, daylight and sunlight in particular, on 9 stories as opposed to a slightly lower scheme? Or would we still be looking at impacts of the scale being described if it was just 1 floor less? Because that was, Rachel refers to site allocation, that says 6 to 8 stories, and we are going a bit above. Does that go a bit above make much difference on what is a significant impact?
Chair, is that question directed to me?
It could be, in fact, oh yes, sunlight, yes, sorry, I now see your daylight and sunlight. Yeah.
Yes, I'm in the report that we submitted with the application, we actually did run a set of tests based on an indicative 6-story massing. We only have a general master plan for the site. So there is a comparison between the current figures of the actual scheme submitted and an indicative 6-story form of massing. And even at 6 stories, the results are comparable to the application scheme. There are swings and roundabouts. There are some where it's slightly worse and some where it's slightly better. But where it's the current scheme is much better is the gap that we've created between the 2 buildings allows better internal daylight distribution. Sorry if I get a bit technical, but the internal daylight distribution figures are better for the application scheme than for an indicative 6-story scheme. So if those results tell us that if we went higher, if we went beyond 6 stories, and let's say we went to 7 or 8 stories across the whole site, again, it's difficult to design a building if you're only working on a master plan. Those results would be worse than the current application scheme. So I hope that answers the question.
I think it does. Thank you. If I may, I've got a question to the objectors. Obviously, you heard, and it was language that we are familiar with as committee members, but might sound like dry bureaucratic speak to you, I don't know. When the applicant said site allocation is a material consideration, what that means is we can't just reject an application because we don't like the look of it. We have to apply the policies. And the policy is expecting a 6 to 8 story development on this site. So my question to the objectors is given that's a policy that we are not writing today, that people voted on this scheme. Like, if we were to reject this, what would you anticipate would be an acceptable scheme to you? Yeah.
So, if you could give me the opportunity to answer this question, but I've got some follow-on questions in terms of the presentations which were made by officers, which contradicts what's in the report.
Okay. Unfortunately, I mean, if you've got those points, you can raise them through the processes afterwards. But this is this is an opportunity for us to deliberate.
Let me come to this point. So I'd like to take you through. I'm sure I just want to ask a question in terms of the members. If they've seen the email from David Sermon and also from the entity home, Lance, there are two experts in sunlight, daylight, and right to light. And they're experts in this area. I am no expert in this particular area. So the questions I had posed to them was, what would the impact be in terms of the size of the height of the building? And the response they gave back to me was very clear. It says, the less the height is, because what has happened is they've taken a reading on March 21st, which is the winter solstice, and then the summer solstice. What they have not done is try to extrapolate that in terms of what would the impact be up to September. And that is what a light study does in terms of shadowing and light, because the impact after June to 21st is it will change, it will drop. So there will be less. So the winter months will be longer with dark, no daylight for us. And in the summertime, there will be the shadowing effect as well. So I think this study which Lumina has done is not conclusive. And that is why I feel that from these two experts, they are saying the same thing. They feel that a bit more study needs to be done in terms of the impact to the residents. And in my own case, I had psychological issues because of problems with daylight. Dark room, my rooms are very dark. This will aggravate the problem. And also my issue with terms, and you will agree, 77 winter avenue will have no light shadowing. If you look at the diagram, it tells you that. And then back of the picture. So in my view, if they decide, if there's a redesign, it will make a difference. A redesign, going back to look at the design, not just what's in the middle, but looking at moving the height to follow the height of my house, which is at 2 Hartley Avenue, rather than extending all the way 9 stories, will make a big difference. Because the daylight, the shadow will fall onto my wall. It will not extend out to the gardens and to the back gardens of Winter Avenue. So I think a redesign, a thought, somebody needs to give some thought on redesigning it, looking at it from the perspective, rather than looking at a model based on a 6-story model. I think that is what I was advised by these two people, and they're willing to come to members to give further advice on this matter.
All right, thank you very much. Shall we move to a vote on this? That's okay. I think we discussed it at some length, and just to reassure all people watching and listening that we've got, as well as the discussion we've had today, we have many pages. It in fact goes to well over 100, nearly 120 pages. That includes details from the objections that have been submitted. So, and that has all been considered by all the members here today. But the recommendation is for approval, and it's on page 43 to 44. Can I see all those in favour of the recommendation? Okay, that is 5. That is unanimous. That has been approved. And thank you very much, everyone, for taking both applicants and objectors to a very important conversation. Okay, I think I can now move to agenda item 8, which is East Ham Police Station, and we have physical applicants here. Yes. So if I could ask you to come over to this area. As I was saying to previous speakers, I will be strict with the time. Thank you very much.
Chair, while the changeover is going on, could we have a
Yes,
break?
yeah, that's a good idea. It is 34 minutes past. Can we come back at 40 minutes past? Is that okay? 6-minute break. Thank you very much.
Are you doing okay?
So, do you mean someone who's on Zoom? Sorry, so you said you emailed it to Shirley? Yeah, but just check, it's just a share as well. Let me just check. Checked it, sent it to her. Sorry, can I just ask, so you sent it, yes, it's a Monday, and can I ask what name?
Hello, Joy. The presentation's in the file.
Okay, let me turn it
Still on broadcast.
self-share it. Well, let me just see if I can. Adrian. I wasn't sure it was me, sorry. Share my screen.
And we're rolling on YouTube anyway.
We are rolling on YouTube at this point.
Yes, great. Okay, welcome back everyone. We're on agenda item 8. We have the applicant team now at their seats, and you have 5 minutes to address us. And as I'm saying to everyone, you do not need to use it all. Thank you very much.
Just getting them. There's a presentation which we're just getting. So my name is David Tucker from Rubin Studio. My colleague here, Emma Murphy. And so this is the proposal to expand New Collegiate Sixth Form College by 200 students. So as you know, New Collegiate Sixth Form College (NCS) was created by London Borough of Newham as a way of keeping more of Newham's academically successful GCSE students within the borough. It opened with 300 students and has expanded gradually. NCS is part of the City of London Academy, and the project funder is the Department for Education. Next slide, please. So whilst that's been organised, so the college is within the East Ham Town Hall campus, which is part of the East Ham Civic Centre conservation area. And the next slide will show the different aspects of the site. So number 1 is the police station site, which is the proposal. Site 2 is the former East Ham Public Library that the college occupied. Site 3 is the old Technical College, and Site 4 is the Town Hall extension. So there's a campus feel to this college. Next slide, please. So these are existing external photos of the police station site, as the site is 0.27 of a hectare. The existing 1904 Grade 2 listed police station has an attached station master's house at the rear. And there used to be a building on the site which was a section house which was 7 stories, which was demolished in 2014. Next slide. These are photos of the inside of the building, so they show the current condition. You'll see there's a lack of existing original features. The building has been on Historic England's Building at Risk register, and so this project will provide sustainable use for the college for the building moving forward. Next slide. So in terms of the expansion brief, the rooms are listed on the screen there. The additional accommodation required has been established using the Department for Education specification and in consultation with NCS. The key drivers are a sensitive approach to the heritage aspect of the site, clever use of existing rooms within the police station to provide sensible uses for the college. This building will contribute to the campus feel of NCS and enhance its civic presence, and part of the building will provide a civic presence. Next slide. I'll hand over to you.
So one of the key drivers behind this conservation-led scheme was to use as much of the existing police station as possible. And if we jump to the ground floor plan in the top right hand corner, you can see that we're using most of all of the space within the police station. This is where the main entrance to the building will be. We have some staff areas and seminar rooms here, and we're also repurposing on the cell block and to become for counselling rooms and one-to-one tuition rooms. We're introducing a new stair and lift to make accessibility across the whole building. We are proposing to remove some of the smaller later add-on structures at the back of the police station. And we discussed this with Historic England to support this. That will help to open up the central area at the back highlighted green, which will be the dining hall connecting the existing building to the new build. And within the new build, we're proposing 9 new standard classrooms along with some ancillary spaces. So
1 minute.
This is a 3D overview, which just gives you an idea of the mass and context. Next slide, please. In terms of materials, we're looking towards the existing building for inspiration. So we're proposing a red brick to complement the existing along with contemporary cladding material in the form of zinc. Next slide. So this is one of our CGIs we produced. This is the courtyard outside the dining hall, and so the idea is that this will become Inside the dining hall, so you can see we're proposing a very light touch connection to the existing building, trying to bring in some natural daylight to really highlight the features. And then this is supposed to be from the district style, so you can see that the most prominent feature is still the existing police station restored to its former glory. You can get a glimpse of our in the background there.
You have used 5 minutes now. Can I stop you there? I am keen to make progress, and we might have questions and bring more on. Can I move straight to our planning officers, Brad Binder, on this one? Is that right or wrong? Sorry. Yes.
Thank you, Chair. That's correct.
Carry on.
I'll just share my screen now. Can I confirm that you can see the presentation?
Yes.
Yep. Good evening, members. This is item 8, East Ham Police Station. The site is situated in the central eastern portion of the borough within East Ham Central, bounded by High Street South to the east and St Bartholomew's Road to the western axis. The application seeks the erection of a 2-storey education building to the rear of the site with a single-storey link with internal and external alterations and modifications associated with the refurbishment of the former East Ham Police Station to accommodate an educational use, together with a new lift to the police station and including other associated works. These images are the view from High Street South towards the main entrance and the side access. The upper image is the view from St Bartholomew's Road towards the rear axis, and the lower image is the view north on High Street South, showing the listed buildings on the East Ham Town Hall complex on the right and the Newham College building on the left, next to the former East Ham Police Station. This image is an aerial photo showing the site outlined in red, which is a Grade 2 listed former police station. The site is within the conservation area outlined in green and is near the Grade 2 star listed Town Hall and Grade 2 wall which wraps the site. The Grade 2 Technical College building, occupied by Newham Collegiate Sixth Form College, is behind that. And then the Grade 2 Library building, and then the Grade 2 former East Ham Fire Station building alongside that. Other buildings within the area include the locally listed buildings numbers 383 to 413 Barking Road, and the Grade 2 Denmark Arms and the Grade 2 Fellowship House to the west of the site. This plan shows the proposed site layout, which includes the proposed internal and external refurbishments and remodeling to the police station, the proposed 2-storey building to the rear, and the glazed link to the existing building, and the landscaping and the associated works to external areas. This plan denotes the areas that are remodeled in red on the ground floor of the police station. It includes removal of non-original elements, enlargements to the rooms to allow for a new entrance and lift shaft. It also details where original window openings are reinstated. This plan denotes the areas that are remodeled in red on the first floor of the police station. And this plan denotes the areas that are remodeled in red on the second floor of the police station. This image shows a visual of the police station once works are completed. You can see the entrance on the right-hand side, and to the rear of that, you can just make out the new building. This plan shows the proposed north and east elevations of both the site. In the upper image, the new building is to the right with the glazed link connecting to the police station. The lower right image is the police station, and the lower left, the new building at the rear of the police station. This plan shows the proposed south and west elevations of the site. The lower image shows the west elevation of the new building. This plan shows the proposed ground floor of the site. The areas in orange and yellow show teaching and seminar room spaces. The areas in green, the dining and breakout areas. The areas in blue, the administrative spaces, and purple, the storage locations. 2 accessible parking bays are located on the western portion of the site also. This plan shows the proposed first and second floor of the site. The orange and yellow areas again are the teaching and seminar spaces, and blue the administrative areas. It's noted that DRP had commented on the landscaping proposals being underwhelming. This plan shows the proposed landscaping, which would now consist of a number of new trees, raised planters, shrubbery to the rear, and new planting to the front of the site. Bat boxes and a green roof are also included, and new paving within the site. The lower right-hand image shows the roof plan, which is smaller, with green indicating the green roof to the new building and part of the rear police station roof also. The upper image on this slide is the visual looking west within the glazed link area. The lower image is the visual looking southeast towards the glazed link and external seating area on the north side of the site. Key planning considerations are the principle of development, design, heritage, transport and travel, and impact to neighbours. The proposals are considered to satisfy the relevant criteria of local plan policy INF 8 and town centre policies relating to need and location for this educational use within the former East Ham Police Station site. The proposals will be compatible with the strategic site allocation of S26 East Ham Town Hall campus. The applicant has demonstrated that they have engaged with Newnham College adjoining the site to the south, with the scheme being designed sensitively to boundaries, thus not prejudicing neighbouring sites' potential redevelopment plans in future. The principle of the proposed development is acceptable in accommodating the growing needs of the local population and the council's aim of providing good quality education establishments in appropriate locations. Officers have attributed significant weight to the objectives of the NPPF and have taken a positive approach in understanding the need to create, expand or alter schools. Officers recognise the benefit that this proposal would provide in creating sixth forms places and bringing an at-risk heritage asset into a suitable alternative use, whilst also conserving and enhancing it. The principle of development is therefore considered acceptable. In terms of design and appearance, the proposed design of the buildings are acceptable and appropriate for the intended use and the site context. The materials are robust and the design takes account of the layouts of the existing listed building and the external areas on the site. The scale, massing and heights of the new building is considered appropriate in view of the listed police station. The applicant has engaged with Historic England and the proposals to the police station are also considered acceptable. In particular, the retention, reuse and restoration of the listed building is strongly supportive. The proposals have evolved positively through the pre-application process and have been reviewed and supported by the chair of the design review panel and is also supported by the LBN strategic design manager. The new building, glaze link and external areas are well detailed overall. The refurbishments are also supported. The materials and design take account the needs of the sixth form and the significance of the listed police station. A number of conditions are recommended in relation to materials, detailed design, internal and external finishes, schedule of works and landscaping. Subject to all of those being attached, the design is therefore supported. In terms of heritage and the impact to heritage assets, the significance of the former Grade 2 listed police station is in the aesthetic value, with the building being of considerable architectural interest and quality design by John Dixon Butler, an architect renowned for his work with police stations, many of which are listed. The building also forms part of the group of civic listed buildings within the East Ham Conservation Area. It also has communal value in its visual expression of law and order and keeping the community safe for over 100 years. The proposed restoration and renovation would have no harm to the significance of the heritage asset, but be enhanced through sensitive repair and refurbishment of its fabric. The proposal would enhance the positive contribution which the police station makes to the character and appearance of the conservation area and recovering the functional relationship via a new use with the town hall complex, while also bringing the at-risk heritage asset back into an alternative suitable use. The proposals are supported by Historic England, Design Review Panel and the LBN Strategic Design Manager. The site is also located within the East Ham Conservation Area and nearby a number of listed buildings within the East Ham Town Hall Civic Complex mentioned earlier. The impact to the conservation area and the listed buildings has been assessed in line with the national and local policy within the officer report. Officers consider that the proposal, due to their siting, scale and design, will not have a negative impact on and the setting of the former East Ham Police Station, nearby listed buildings and East Ham Conservation Area. Officers consider the proposals would help to mitigate the current loss of some of its significance due to its closure and the at-risk status, bringing the station back into a new beneficial public use, serving as a functional part of the wider civic centre. The proposals are therefore supported. In relation to transportation, the site achieves a PTAL of 6A, indicating excellent access to public transportation. 2 accessible car parking spaces and 36 cycle parking spaces are proposed on the site. The access for students and vehicles is also separated. LBN Transportation have reviewed the proposals and raised no objections, but recommended conditions relating to school travel plan, construction logistics plan, traffic management plan and cycle parking provision, and heads of terms in relation to restriction on car parking permits, Section 278 Agreement for Highway Works and contributions towards improvements for the future cycle infrastructure in East Ham and active travel. The development is acceptable in relation to transport and travel. In terms of impact to neighbouring amenity, of the 810 neighbours consulted for both the listed building consent and full application, 2 objections have been received with concerns outlined within the committee report and the committee update report. Officers have carefully considered the proposals and its location within the town centre and with associated transport infrastructure. The proposals, therefore subject to conditions, are anticipated not to have an unacceptable impact upon neighbouring residential amenity. In terms of the recommendation for the full planning commission, members are asked to note the committee update and resolve to agree the reasons for approval as set out in this report, 2, delegate authority to the Director of Planning and Development to have regard to and consider representations that are received following the expiration of the ongoing consultation on the 26th of May 2021. Should any matters be raised that have not been considered within the report, the application will be reported back to committee for its consideration. And 3, delegate authority to the Director of Planning and Development to grant planning permission subject to the completion of a legal agreement under Section 106 of the Town and Country Planning Act 1990 as amended, based on the heads of terms identified at Appendix 3 of this report and the conditions listed in Appendix 1 of the committee report. In respect to the listed building consent, one more recommendation. Strategic Development Committee is asked to note the committee update and resolve to 1, agree the reasons for approval as set out in this report. 2, delegate authority to the Director of Planning and Development to have regard to and consider representations that are received following the expiration of the ongoing consultation on the 26th of May 2021. Should any matters be raised that have not been considered within the report, the application will be reported back to committee for its consideration. And 3, grant listed building consent based on the conditions in Appendix 2 of the committee report. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, and I've got big asterisks to take 2 votes at the end, listed building consent application.
Yeah.
And I don't propose to open a debate about whether the police are kept us safe, which I think could be controversial. Right, any other questions or comments? Alan?
Yes, I could ask about future predictions of school roles, but given the size of what's on page 244, I think that'd be wasting everybody's time. I do have one concern, which is about this entrance into some Bartholomew's Road. I didn't find that in the report, given the buildings with elderly people and the day nursery in St Bartholomew's Road, I'd be very concerned if that was a regular pedestrian entrance to the site. So I'd be grateful if somebody could assure me that it's not good.
Can someone assist you? We go to our office first.
Thank you, Chair. That's the Bartholomew's Road entrance isn't the regular entrance. The entrance will be off High Street South for students entering the site.
But you say it's not a regular entrance?
No, so it's not where students will be expected to come in, but it's where the accessible bays are accessed for car parking purposes. So if students who have accessibility needs require a car parking space, and they can be dropped off via the St Bartholomew's entrance.
Yeah, you're happy, Alan. Yeah, thank you. Anything else? John?
Yeah, I've got a question regarding really the conservation of the heritage value internally and the adaptation of the rooms to make them suitable for teaching. Now, all that seems to be mentioned is that some partitions will need to be removed, but could we have perhaps a fuller explanation of what needs to be done to the rooms to make them suitable for teaching?
So, carry on. Yeah. So there are some partitions that need to be removed, essentially higher up the building in order to make larger teaching spaces. But we're not talking about a 60 square metre classroom. They asked for 30 to 40 square metre rooms. So they're not. It's not a drastic change to the sort of structure and the character of the building at the upper levels. Where else we're making a change is where we need to bring a lift and a new stair up. And that does take out a bit of the back of the building in order to do that. But on balance, the advantages of the accessibility outweigh the harm to the building. So actually, there's not a lot of major structural alteration to the building at all. We're trying to keep it as intact as possible.
Thank you. That's one question.
Can I ask, is there going to be an old staircase retained? I was looking at the plans, it looked like there was at the front. Yeah, that's right. And so my next question is, because obviously we're often used to new schemes new developments coming to planning, kind of new buildings. And what a lot of us are irritated by is the way in which new buildings encourage everyone to use lifts. And if you want a stairwell, you go to some kind of fire exit door that looks like it's not really for use. Is this going to be a development where we're going to have that stairwell as kind of an obvious desire line to get to different floors?
Yes, so the new stair that we're putting in is very much in a key circulation node of the building. So it does encourage you to go up, and you do get you'll get a view when you walk in from the dining hall. You'll get an instant view in terms of there's the stair and it's going up. So it's a really quick sort of visual kick to vertical circulation. So yeah, the circulation is very evident, and it's not going to promote lift use if you don't need to use it.
Yeah. Great, thank you. Harbinder.
Yeah, Chair, just a quick question really, in the sense that considering this is a 1944 building, which is a heritage site, has there been any consideration, or I'm not sure if it's right, or blue flag to be marked there?
Sorry,
or blue flag?
So I can't hear you. What are you saying?
A blue plaque.
A blue plaque.
To mark the design of stairs.
My understanding, blue plaques are decided by a national committee, so it's not something that we could add on to doing ourselves.
I understand that, but could it be something that you could go away and think about it to approach it? This is a 1904 building by a prominent design.
Yeah.
And to keep that history there, to me, would be something substantial within the borough, considering that there are plenty of changes within the borough. And to have something, a plaque, or even some kind of history along with that inside, so that the future generations can see we, as members here, have taken on board to preserve something which is within the borough.
So what we are proposing to do is to put a board inside the building which shows the history of it. So and we're trying to collate as many original photos of it as possible. So there will be a board on or around the section where you can see the history of the building.
Thank you. Thank you. I think that point's been well witnessed. Thank you. I've got a question. I was very excited, and this is where my declaration of interest comes in. The contribution, 75,000 towards a strategic cycle route corridor from Manor Park down. So I've got two questions. One's to the applicant, which is when is the scheme likely to go live by people using the new development? And a question to London Borough of Newham is when is the strategic cycle route that's planned, and some money will come from this, go live, that these students can use? So can I go to when you go live? Open to.
So the project will be going live later this year, so towards the end of summer this year, August.
Right, okay, so soon, basically. So, and should I go to the window? When are we likely to actually have a good cycle route running along here?
Chair, yes, I haven't got the full details of that, but we certainly, as you know, we've got a lot of emphasis on the cycle networks in the borough, and this money that we're looking for is to improve the cycle facilities around the area, and it will definitely benefit the students accessing the site. It'll be within the Section 106 and agreed accordingly, and the money will be used accordingly. Does that clarify, or would you like further information?
Well, I'm anxious to hear news about speed, because we've got the cycle parking on site, which there's some, we might think there should be more, but we also, I think, would want people to get to the site safely. And so this is a contribution which is really important to, to be not just sitting there thinking, oh, we'd like to do a nice route here, we've got some money. We're going to actually seek students to travel safely to this area.
No, you're quite right. There certainly are plans, as I said, for the improvement in the cycle facilities in the area, and this is a contribution. This would be a contribution rather than funding the whole scheme. So this will definitely be used to improve those facilities.
Okay, I think I made my point. Any other questions or comments, John?
Yeah, another question about the cycle spaces. The 36 cycle spaces. Cycle parking spaces seems to be rather low, but it is indicated that more cycle parking spaces could be secured across the campus as a whole. And I wondered if this could be set as a condition that more cycle space be provided across the bigger campus.
Should I take first the applicant's comment on the wider campus, and then anything about conditions? I'll come back to officers.
So as part of the application, we've consulted with Narinda, and there is going to be a review taken on within the sort of outer buildings, the site area of the outer buildings, where we can put cycle parking. So there is going to be a study done as part of our work. I don't know whether that will lead to implementation.
Okay, because so, yeah, is it Narinda or another officer on kind of future conditions to develop cycle parking on the site, the wider site? Campus further.
Chair, I did miss some of that. It's a bit difficult to hear some of the conversation.
Yeah.
So from the applicant, can you just repeat what you said, or can you clarify, Chair, what was said about that?
I understand the applicant saying there is, as part of conversations with officers, there will be a review of cycle parking across the educational facilities on the kind of pro-campus. I suppose the question to you is how does that work in terms of planning conditions?
Well, the
Maybe if I may,
yeah.
shall I take that? In terms of the conditioning of cycle parking, we can only condition within our red line boundary, which only encompasses the police station site. However, the applicant have set forward their intention to actually look at the site wide of the rest of the Newham Collegiate and whether or not they can provide cycle parking elsewhere out of their own sort of volition, voluntarily, rather than us. We can't secure that element of it as part of this application, but we're happy to see details if they are providing it across the wider campus as part of the details that we're going to secure with this site itself.
Okay. Do I need any further information? I think that may be sufficient. Is that okay? Yeah. Shall we move to a vote? Right. So there are two votes that I've remembered. I'm very bad at this usually, but partly of my interruption earlier. So first of all, can we vote on Planning Commission, which is page 217 to 218? The recommendation is for approval. All those in favour? That's 5, that's unanimous. And then the next vote is on the listed building consent, and that's on pages 219 onwards. All those in, that's recommended for approval. All those in favour of approval? Recommendation 5, that's approved. So that application is approved both in terms of planning commission and listed building consent. Thank you very much. Thank you.
Nice to see you.
Right. Final item, final substantive item, agenda item 9, 1018 Dockside. Now, is it James Singer? Apologies, do you, from the applicant team, do you wish to address us, or are you here to answer questions?
I will be addressing the committee, if that's okay, Chair, although I will be keeping it as short and sweet as I can.
Please do. Okay, carry on. I will time you, although I'm hoping that will become academic, but carry on, you've got 5 minutes.
Thank you, Chair, for allowing me to speak today in support of the application. It is an extension to the Holiday Inn Express at Dockside Road. The tourism industry has been one of the hardest hit sectors during the COVID-19 pandemic. Like a number of businesses, the Holiday Inn Express has seen a loss during this period due to the decrease in number of visitors. However, the building was not closed during this time. Throughout the pandemic, the hotel hosted more than 25,000 nurses, key workers and construction workers for the Nightingale Hospital at the Excel Centre, which helped support a number of local jobs over the last 18 months. The hotel currently holds 204 bedrooms and has been in operation since 2016. This application seeks an extension to provide 77 hotel rooms and reconfiguration of the ground floor level to provide an additional meeting room to replace a vacant retail unit and extend the existing restaurant facilities. The proposed extension will provide extra beds to cover the rise in demand for the hotel rooms in the area, including the potential plans to extend the Excel Centre. The proposal of new hotel accommodation is supported within the New London Plan, as you will have seen in the officer's report, which seeks to provide an additional 58,000 hotel bedrooms by 2041. The hotel is also located within the Royal Docks strategic site, identified in the Newham local plan as a key location for visitor accommodation. The principle of the proposed increase in hotel floor space in the area is supported by the local plan and the London plan and has been recommended for approval by officers. The plans have been revised during the application in consultation with officers, and the proposed extension reflects the design, form, materials, and height of the existing hotel building. The existing courtyard car park is proposed to be removed, reducing parking provision from 63 to 18 spaces to help to reduce travel to the site by car in accordance with local plan objectives. The site is well connected to public transport, including the Royal Albert DLR station, which is a 2-minute walk from the site and provides transport links to the City of London. This reduction in car parking has been designed in collaboration with the Council's Highways Officer and complies with the local plan as well as the London Plan's strategic target of 80% of all trips in London to be made by foot, bike or public transport, again by 2041. In its place, the courtyard will provide 8 new trees and high quality soft landscaping, as well as a green roof and green wall to the hotel building. This results in a biodiversity net gain and meets the London Plan's target urban greening factor. An energy statement has been submitted which seeks to incorporate measures to lower energy emissions and CO2 emissions, and a preliminary BREEAM assessment has been produced which concludes that the development will meet BREEAM Excellent. As well as being policy compliant, the proposal seeks to expand a local business. The application will provide a number of economic, social and environmental benefits, including the direct creation of additional local jobs, both at the hotel and through the construction phase, 11% of accessible hotel rooms across multiple levels in line with policy requirements, promotion of sustainable travel through the inclusion of a travel plan, and contribution to the loan plan and local plan objective developments. Overall, we consider the proposed development should be supported and invite you to approve the planning application in line with the officer's recommendation.
Thank you very much. I think it was slightly broken for a moment, but I think we heard everything substantive that we needed to. Thank you. Okay, so I think we might have a committee report now from our officer. Marina.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you, Chair. Sorry, just let me share my screen. Hello, Chair. Can I ask you to confirm if you can see the presentation properly?
Yeah, fine. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Chair. Good evening, members and the members of the public. So the application I'm presenting today is item 9, and Dockside 1018 Dockside Road. The application site, which is highlighted in red line, is known as a Holiday Inn Express, located on the north side of Dockside Road. It is bounded by Royal Albert Way to the rail. The existing hotel is located with a hotel quarter, which includes 2 other neighboring hotels, Travelodge and Hilton. As you know, the hotel is not far away from our offices at the Dockside as well. The existing hotel is formed with a L-shaped block and a rectangular block with a linking glazing corridor that connects to the upper floors. Reception, bar, restaurant, retail shop, and the staff areas are located on the ground floor with 3 stories of accommodation above. The hotel currently has a total room of 204 and also around 30 staffs. The blocks form a central courtyard that is open towards Royal Albert Way. It is used for car parking and contains some soft landscaping. The site is not located in a conservation area and nor is related to any listed buildings. Full planning permission is sought for the erection of a 5-story extension to provide 77 additional hotel rooms and a single-story extension to the existing cafe and the restaurant at the ground floor. Change use of vacant retail units to a meeting room used by the hotel and associated hard and soft landscaping works. This slide lists the key planning considerations to be considered under the planning application. of which detailed assessments are presented on the following slides. The existing hotel forms part of the hotel quarter. The proposal seeks to intensify the use. The site is with stitched signs which are identified by the local plan as the borough's key locations for the leisure and tourism users. The proposed intensification of hotel use is considered to comply with policy S1 and S5 in further developing the tourism focus point at Beckton and the Royal Docks, and contributing to a diversity of visitor accommodation, including for business and leisure. The existing hotel has a ground floor retail unit, which is vacant at present, and is proposed to be converted to a meeting room used by the hotel. The retail unit is some 68 square meters. It's a standalone retail unit at this part of Dockside Road. Therefore, the loss of this retail unit is not considered to be detrimental to the viability of a residential core or retail core. In summary, the proposed development is supported in principle. A number of revisions have been made to the scheme during the course of consideration. This includes removal of a floor of accommodation to adjust the design unity with the existing buildings. The new extension block will replicate the form of existing buildings by matching brick parapet to ensure the extension is more in keeping with the existing buildings. Further amendments also include repositioning the proposed extension block so that the existing trees fronting Royal Albert Way can be retained, reducing the car parking spaces with the courtyard to improve the existing landscape that is dominated by hard standing, retaining 2 remaining meeting rooms, which were initially proposed to be converted to bedrooms in order to address privacy concerns. This slide shows the proposed ground floor plan and the upper floor plans. The new extension would have a similar height to the existing buildings that are 4 stories. The existing ground floor has a large floor-to-ceiling height to accommodate its public spaces, and the proposal uses this and sinks the new block down by 600 millimeters to achieve 2 levels of accommodation. The original consent granted in 2012 contains a very minimum hard and soft hard standing schemes, as the applicant was responsible for the public realm improvements to the front of the site. The existing landscape includes 3 trees with the central courtyard, a line of the trees to the east side of the site, and 4 existing trees along the rear boundary. All the existing trees will be retained. The courtyard will be softened with additional trees and shrub plantings to create a welcoming area enjoyed by the guests. 3 existing trees with the central yard will be removed but replaced with 8 new trees. The proposal will much improve the current landscaping that is dominated by hard standing. A landscaping condition is included for details of planning to come forward. This slide shows a 3D model of the proposed development, which includes a single-story cafe extension and a hotel bedroom extension. This provides us 3D views from Royal Albert Way. This is the new extension block. The applicant has been working closely with the council's design team to address the design concerns raised and ensure that the design of the proposal is of a high quality in accordance with the local plan design policies. The proposal is supported in design terms. The council's economy regeneration team has been consulted on the application and provided the employment and skill contributions based on 35% of construction jobs and 50% end users. The contributions are secured by Section 106 agreement. The nearby residential properties are more than 100 meters away to its north, Given this separation, the proposed development is not anticipated to generate any detrimental form of neighboring amenity. The existing vehicle and pedestrian access to the site are currently taken from Dockside Road, which will retain. The proposal will also provide additional cycle provision, which are in accordance with the London Plan requirement. And additional service demand will be accommodated with existing service arrangement. The officers would like particularly outline the parking provision on site. The hotel has 63 existing parking spaces, including one taxi drop point on street and 3 on-street blue barge parking. The remainings are located on the central yard. The current provision of car parking spaces is considered to be excessive and fails to encourage sustainable transport. The hotel has around 30 staff. 1/3 of staff currently travel to work by car. The remaining use the public transport or walk or cycle. And the proposed extension will employ a further 15 employees, totaling 45 staff in total. The applicant has stated the site does not offer business permits and there are no allocated parking spaces for the staff at the site. Indeed, the current parking area is managed by Parking Eye, which is a private parking management company. All staff that wish to travel to work by car will have to register their car online, and the parking is managed by the CCTV, which automatically registers the car by its number plate, and the staff are charged automatically for parking on the site. This arrangement will remain. The proposal, the current parking spaces will be reduced to 18 as a result of development, including 3 on-street parking for blue barge and 1 taxi drop, and the remaining will be on the central part, which includes 3 blue barge parking and 12 parking spaces. So this level of reduction is welcomed by the Council's transport officers. And the Council's transportation team also requests the development to comply with the Council's car-free policy and enter into a Section 106 agreement agreeing to restriction on issuing of car parking permits for local RPZ. Subject to conditions under Section 106 agreement, the proposed development is supported in transport terms. The new extension will provide 77 additional hotel rooms, 11% of which will be wheelchair accessible, and this is secured by condition. A new lift will give the practical access for wheelchair users to access all the floor levels. Level access to hotel entrances, landscaped areas, and the means of the escape are provided on site. On this basis, the proposal complies with the London Plan's inclusive design policy. All other material considerations relating to waste, energy, flood risk and assessment, air quality, and contamination are stated in the committee report. This slide shows the head of terms which have been agreed by the applicant, which includes travel plan monitoring, car-free development, carbon offset contributions, and employment and skills contributions. A total of 8 consultation letters were sent to the neighboring properties regarding this application, and no responses have been received. Members are asked to note the committee update and agree the reasons for approval set out in the report, and delegate authority to the Director of Planning and Development to grant planning permission, subject to the completion of a legal agreement based on the head of the terms identified at Appendix 2 of the report and the conditions listed in Appendix 1 of the report. Thank you.
Thank you. Any questions or comments? Rachel.
Just one quick question. I wondered whether the proposed car-free status, as well as restricting the ability to apply for permits in the local CPZ, would also restrict the ability to apply for business permits.
Chair, through the chair, Narendra Booby. Yes, Councillor, that would be the case. The concern from our point of view is that if they apply for any business permits or even for which can be given to the visitors, they could park in the RPZ area, and that's what we want to avoid.
Thank you.
Thank you. Anything else? No. Shall we to vote? Okay, recommendation for approval is on page 311 and it's for approval. All those in favour of the recommendation? That is 5. That's unanimous. That's approved. Thank you very much. And then date of next meeting is the 5th of June 2021, and I'm going to declare the meeting closed. Thank you very much.
Chair, I know you didn't want anyone to say, but I did want to extend our thanks to you for being a great chair. You have done sterling work, and it's often been really hard, and you've been a really great chair, and we've really appreciated it. And I know you specifically asked me not to do this, but I was going to.
All right, I've got nothing further to say. Let's get on here.